Today, as well as everything else. Thanks, Butila.
Thanks, Cheri. Good morning. When Cheri shared the idea of mobilizing women in a faith-based initiative to eliminate domestic violence, I immediately felt that it was something that was going to work. Religion plays a significant role in the life of many people in my community. Tibetan people are well known for our commitment to faith. The sense of community that faith builds among women provides a safe and comfortable space to seek support. We can draw on spiritual inspiration to address the problem of domestic violence. The simple idea of a group of women meeting in a place of worship a few times a year, centered around prayer and friendship, allows for this initiative to be adapted into the context of every group's own faith and with people who are familiar with it. I think it's time to tap into the power of faith and religious belief as a strategy to prevent domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Butila. Jim, do you have any questions before we move to the signing?
I do. Some years ago, the better part of 10, I think, I covered a coroner's inquest. It was to do with a domestic killing in Durham. It was known as the Hadley inquest. A man had shot his estranged wife and then killed himself. And part of the struggle for the woman was the lack of any place to go. She basically she was isolated and she had no place to go with her child. And not surprisingly to most people in the field, I guess, this inquest came some years after a very similar inquest. It was into Randy Isles and a woman that basically covered the same terrain and got what seemed to be wonderful recommendations and very limited action. So I wonder if you could tell me what are the sort of, is temporal the right word? What are some of the temporal solutions that women in distress need immediately?
Well, certainly shelter. That's critical. And we have Redwood Shelter here as a classic example of a community agency that's meeting that need. We need more of that. We need more housing and more affordable housing. There's a host of things that women need that are very practical. But I think what this initiative addresses is a new way at the problem, because the old ways aren't working. This is a new way to add on to what's already being provided in the community. And that is, as you've heard the women speak about, to get the women in faith communities mobilized around it. To me, it's like awaking a sleeping dragon. Most faith communities run on the hard work of women in the pews, whether they're mosques, synagogues, churches, temples. And these women are looking at everybody's issues and everybody's problems often than their own. And this says we need a space where women can look at the number one problem afflicting women in our community, and that is violence, domestic violence. It's a huge issue. I remember a stat, and it's stuck with me because it was a reporter who had covered Yugoslavia and talked about the rape camps during that war, and came back, of course, traumatized from the experience and said, there were 25,000 women who had suffered rape and were trying to get over it, get on with their lives. And the woman she told just seemed uninterested, and she said, "Why doesn't this shock you?" And she said, "It doesn't shock me because there are 700,000 women raped a year in the United States." When I heard that figure, because we always hear 1 in 4, or 1 in 5, or 1 in 10, we hear these percentages, but we don't hear the actual number. When you hear the number, you realize it's a war that we're talking about, a kind of domestic war. And faiths are places of peace. They're places that preach nonviolence by their very nature. And the women represented here have committed their lives to nonviolent action around issues of violence. So this is a circumstance like that. And we just, this hasn't been done before. It's been talked about, but it just hasn't been done. And I know that everybody here has done phenomenal work in the field, but this is a chance to really get it together. Now, what will happen once a year is that we will get all these chapters together to meet. Probably a year and a half in the first instance, just to get the chapters established at a conference. We hope to have vibrant worship, wonderful keynote speaker, but most importantly, table groups where women of different faiths get together and share their ideas, share what's come out of their chapters in their places of worship. We think this will be, in effect, a huge think tank that will result in phenomenal changes in the community, simply because there will be so many women involved. And we also want to acknowledge the men in our midst, too, the heads of some faith communities, many of which are men, for their bravery in coming forward to sign this, because they really are brothers of ours in the struggle. So their symbolic signing of this shows that it's not only about women, it's also about the men in the faith communities and the leadership of those faith communities that's solidly behind this. And I want to acknowledge Donna Cansfield, who just walked in. Thanks for joining us, Donna, Liberal Party of Ontario, and who's also a supporter of this. I hope that helps.
I'm personally predisposed to think stories are the connective tissue of mankind. I think it's the way cultures understand each other and generations and individuals. And I thought that's what I heard two of your board members there saying when they talked about the power that comes from women sharing experience. Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm. I think so, yeah. I think you're right about stories, and women, I mean, terribly, generalizing terribly, but women are very comfortable sharing with each other. I found I can meet women I don't even know, and within 5 minutes we're all talking about our children or this and that, and it's very easy for women to share. So our hope is with this is that women who have been affected or are living with violence and don't know where to go or are afraid to make it public, are living with guilt or whatever, will find within their own faith group, where it is, as Cheri said, a place of peace and comfort, if they know that there are women there that they can turn to, that they can do that and take that first step.
And also, even if the women get together that haven't experienced violence in their own lives, that they can at least, get active around the issue and look at what they can be doing in their community, their faith community or their broader community, to really combat violence. So, and we were very careful too when we set up Ruth's Daughters that this is, we're going to be directing women to get professional help too, when and where they need it, and we have a lot of those folk here. So this is not going to be a group that's going to solve women's problems, individual problems, but it's going to be a step for some women, and more to the point, a broader step for all women in faith communities to really look at the issue and get going. And to your question of story, the very reason we picked the title, Ruth's Daughters, is because the book of Ruth is about two women of two different faiths, two different nationalities that are not blood related, who look after each other. Ruth looks after Naomi, her mother-in-law, and she walks with her and protects her. And so we thought that that was a wonderful story that at least the people of the book share, if not all faiths. And certainly we hope to broaden this. We have representatives of a number of faiths here, but we hope to broaden it in terms of getting native religions on board, Sikh and Hindu. We don't have board members representing those as well. So this will broaden as it grows, but obviously we have to start somewhere. And so we've decided to start here.
One last short one. I got the Ruth reference, but is there any significance to the 6 women meeting six times a year?
No, it really, there's nothing biblical about it. It was just a sort of, we picked the number out of the air because we thought, you don't want 2 women, you want to have this a size that can, discuss and then move on. And 6 times a year is sort of the minimum for getting anything off the ground we found in organizational life. So there really wasn't anything significant about it. But maybe it should have been 7. That would have been more biblical.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So now we're going to move to the signing. So thank you very much. Board members.